Thankfully, it didn't take long for the University of Pennsylvania President Ms Magill to fall on her sword after that disastrous testimony at a congressional hearing on anti-Semitism at college campuses last week. She struggled repeatedly to say whether calling for the genocide of Jews violated the college's rules. Here she is being grilled.
I am asking, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision.
It is a context-dependent decision. Seriously? In what context is it all right to call for the genocide of the Jews? I got a reaction from Kristin Tate in the States.
Yes, well, I have very little sympathy for these presidents of elite universities. And here's why. She and other heads of these universities have been hiding behind free speech, saying that's why we need to allow these pro-Hamas protesters to essentially endanger Jewish students. But we all know that these college campuses aren't places of free speech. This is the same college campus that was hosting safe spaces with puppies for students to cuddle after Donald Trump got elected, because, you know, the students might have their feelings hurt that Donald Trump was elected. So, you know, these are not places that are friendly to conservatives or conservative speech. And this is just an attempt by these presidents to hide behind that excuse and use it as a shield to defend what is actually, in many cases, hate speech that does endanger Jewish students.
Yeah, it's hate speech that incites people to violence, and your point is so right. I mean, how can they dare claim the free speech argument when these university campuses regularly shout down or cancel other speakers? People as harmless as Jordan Peterson, for instance, are often protested or barred from campuses. It is absurd. But let's have a listen to Ms Magill trying to explain this situation away in those terms.
In that moment, I was focused on our university's longstanding policies aligned with the U.S. Constitution, which say that speech alone is not punishable. These policies need to be clarified and evaluated.
Well, there you go. She's gone, of course, Kristin, but she's not the only one. In those hearings, there were other university leaders who seemed to justify this sort of behaviour, and it's rampant across the college system in the US.
Yes, the presidents of Harvard and MIT are also facing a lot of heat right now for this. And, you know, here's what I have to say to the donors who are all of a sudden outraged by this and demanding that these presidents resign. Hey, donors, it was your money for decades that has created the environments that are now friendly to this kind of pro-Hamas speech that does incite violence. Where have you been for the last decade or two when these college campuses that are being propped up with your money have been transformed into these places that truly are not tolerant of all free speech, not tolerant of all ideas, and hotbeds for hate against certain groups, which absolutely does include Jewish students. So this is a monster that these donors have created. And, you know, I'm glad that they finally come to the realization that these college campuses are not as great as they once thought they were, but they are the ones who have been funding all of this.
Yeah, this is no surprise. This has been a long time coming. Also, no surprises about the ongoing crisis on the US southern border. Here's a latest news snippet from Fox News.
The migrant surge keeps escalating. So many crossing that border. Patrol officials say they're releasing now 5,000 migrants into the U.S. every day.
Let me take you right to some footage we shot on the drone a little earlier of a group that came right up behind me. You've got more than 400 to 500 migrants coming here. Most of the ones here from Venezuela, Guatemala, Honduras, Ecuador, Colombia.
Kristin, you've been hot on this. It's not getting any better.
Of course not. But unfortunately, these numbers, which are truly shocking, have lost their shock value, because now every week, every month, we're hearing these numbers like 5,000 a day, and after a while it just loses its shock value and people start to tune out. But they really shouldn't, because we are losing our country, Chris. I want to remind people that during the Obama administration, 1,000 migrants a day was considered a crisis. I mean, we are way beyond that now. And there just seems to be a total apathy surrounding this issue. I mean, the news media here in America barely ever talks about immigration. So should Trump become the nominee, as it seems he will, I hope he starts banging the drum on this issue again like he was back in 2016. And he really does need to be more aggressive this time about building a wall if he is elected to the presidency again.
Yeah, well, it's important for the country, and it's politically beneficial. There's no doubt about it. The public are not going to like the porous borders in the south of the US. Now, just quickly, I want to check in on the president. It's hard to keep up with all of his gaffes. Let's look at the latest two. Here he is trying to explain how much money is being spent on infrastructure.
Over $1.3 billion, $300 million. Over $1.3 billion,
Billion, trillion, million. Nobody knows actually what figure he was trying to recount there. And this one's even sadder, because this relates to the horrors that are been unfolding in Israel. And it's 65 days he was supposed to be referring to, since the Hamas atrocity in southern Israel on October the 7th. But listen to how he expresses this.
But we know this year's Hanukkah is different. It's been 65 years since the deadliest day of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. 65 years.
65 years ago, Kristin.
Yeah, you know, when I first saw that first clip, the billion million clip, I was on Twitter just kind of scrolling, and I saw it and I thought, man, he must be talking about the amount of money we've sent to Ukraine. And then I realized, oh no, this is just another day, another gaffe with this pathetic president who's, truly just losing his marbles. I mean, this man is not capable of doing the job, which is why I've totally come around to your prediction, Chris, that he will not be the nominee. The Democrats can't allow this, because it's terrifying. The world is up in flames. We've got several wars that have broken out during his presidency, and he is totally unable to deal with this and to lead the free world. It's truly scary.
It sure is, Kristin. Thanks for talking to us. We'll catch up with you next week.